Well, let me welcome you to our Wednesday night live stream prayer meeting service here at the church. Good to have you tuning in with us, whether you're tuning in live or maybe you're picking this up at a later time. We appreciate you taking the opportunity to tune in for the service tonight. We're looking forward to it. We got the Sullins family going to be singing, and I've been looking forward to. We had the girls scheduled to sing a couple Sunday nights ago. We got one song, and the girls in the bottom fell out. So we've been looking forward to them getting back in and singing tonight, so we're grateful that they're here. Then we're looking forward, Brother Jacob, he'll be preaching to us in just a little while, and thank the Lord for this. Let's go, Lord, in prayer. Ask God to help us in the service tonight and touch the girls as they sing, and then touch Brother Jacob as he preaches, and ask God to speak to our hearts through the singing, ask God to speak to our hearts through the preaching. Lord, we sure are grateful for the day that you've given us. Lord, we thank you that you're faithful, even when times are difficult and days are unsettling. Lord, that you're with us, and we thank you for the companionship that we have as we walk through each and every day. Lord, we thank you for the fellowship we've had with your people today and how it's been a blessing to us. Now we pray, Lord, as we come together in this live stream service, Lord, I understand there's challenges to it. I pray for the ones that are listening at home. I pray that they would, Lord, center their mind around the singing and the preaching that's about to take place. And Lord, put all the distractions down and tune in to what you have to say to them from the Word of God tonight through these songs. I pray you touch the girls. Thank you for them. Thank you for their testimony. Lord, these are good, sweet, clean girls that you're using in the work of God. And I pray that you touch them as they sing tonight. Lord, we had a host of prayer requests last night as the men met together to pray. And Lord, I pray that as we've remembered them throughout the day, I pray that you would work in each and every one of those situations. I pray when the preaching hour comes around and Brother Jacob comes and takes the Word of God, opens it to us, I pray you touch him in power and unction as he preaches the Word of God to us now. Thank you for this time that we have together, the ones that are gathered here with us. Lord, I pray you touch our hearts tonight. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Jesus, I'm undone by the goodness of the Lord. I'm restored and made right. He got a hold of my life. I've got Jesus. How could I want more?
Good job, girl. Excellent. Wonderful. Wonderful.
I don't know where I'll be today.
Help yourself, sweetheart. Glory to God. Yeah, I feel the same way. Help yourself, sweetheart.
Me and such a good family.
Yes, say on. Yeah, say on. It's wonderful, darling. It's wonderful. Bless the Lord. Feel the same way, sweetheart.
I don't know where I'll be today. Don't know it.
Bless his name. Yeah, glory to God.
I could be locked up in jail, have no future, no story to tell. I know my soul would be crying from hell, not for grace. If not for grace, I would still be lost and hopeless. If not for grace, there would be no reason to carry on. Oh, when he looked my way, there was mercy on his face. I would not be saved today if not for grace.
Bless his good name. Bless his good name. Hallelujah. That's
Sin
wonderful.
I carry for so long,
Yeah.
things in my past that I have done so wrong. But God's forgiveness I would never know if not for grace. In a hope from heaven above, I would know the words for God so loved. I know my life will be unheard of if not for grace. If not for grace, I would still be lost and hopeless. If not for grace, there would be no reason to carry on. Oh, but when he looked my way, there was mercy on his face. I would not be saved today if not for grace.
I'm glad you know what you're saying. Amen. Amen.
Not for grace, I would still be lost and hopeless. If not for grace, there would be no reason to carry on. Oh, but when he looked my way, there was mercy on his face. I would not be saved today if not for grace. I would not be saved today if not for grace.
That's excellent. Praise God. That's helping me because y'all know what you're singing about. Praise God. Amen. It's wonderful. We all know that we sing about grace of God. God help me. That's a call. Amen. Amen. Wonderful. Bless us. Bless us.
I've had many tears and sorrows.
Hey, I was hoping y'all
and say, I'm thankful for the grace of God. If it were not for grace. See, justice, I don't want justice. Because justice is when you get what you deserve. And if I got what I deserve, I'd be in hell tonight. I'd be in hell. But I didn't get justice. No, I got mercy and grace. Mercy is when you don't get what you deserve.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Hey, might be somebody out there watching tonight. I don't know, from somewhere. You never know. Somebody could be out there. Now, and if you're lost, the fact that you're not already in hell, that's the mercy of God. It's the mercy of God that you turned over there to watch this service tonight. It's the mercy of God that the Holy Ghost would move and speak to your heart. It's the mercy of God that He calls and He calls and He keeps on calling. That's just the mercy of God. But thank God, thank God for His grace. Grace is whenever you put your faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, you put your faith in Him and Him alone, then grace kicks in. Grace kicks in. Thank God I remember the night when grace kicked in, and when I put my faith, all my faith in nothing that I could do, and nothing that my daddy could do or my mama could do or none of my grandparents could do, and when I put my faith completely and wholly in the work of Christ on the cross, and the fact that He died, was buried, and rose again the third day, when I put my faith in that and that alone, the grace of God moved on me. And it's just been grace ever since. Because grace is when you get what you don't deserve. I'm still learning about things that happened. The night I got saved, I'm still studying about it. I read it in the Word of God just about every day about the grace of God and what happened to me. The night I got saved, and I still get stirred up. I still get more to God. I still get happy in the Lord because of His grace. Because of His grace. It's just the grace of God. It's the grace of God. Over and over and over again. In that Word of God, it was just the grace of God. Hey, it was the grace of God when God stopped everything and said, Adam, where art thou, Adam? He knew where he was, but Adam, every man must give an account of himself to God. And Adam said, I'm over here, Lord, I was hiding. God said, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over here and slay an innocent animal, and I'm going to take him coats of skin, and I'm going to clothe you with it. Oh, all the way through the Word, it's just grace. And He said, I'll tell you what else I'm going to do. Woo! He cursed the ground. He cursed the serpent. And He looked at that serpent and He said, I'll put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. That's the first promise of a Redeemer. When the God said, listen, God told the devil that I'm going to send a Redeemer for mankind, and the devil's doing everything he can to stop the grace of God. But the grace of God keeps on working all the way down through time. The grace of God came by where Abraham was, and God made a covenant with Abraham. It wasn't just any kind of covenant. It's one of them kind where it didn't matter what Abraham did. It had nothing to do with his works. Abraham couldn't do nothing for the grace that God poured out on him. It's just grace, grace, grace. All the way through that Word of God. But the greatest display of grace that's ever been is when Jesus went to that cross, that lonely hill on Golgotha, bowed His kingly head and said, it is finished. And He gave up the ghost. Oh, and he won the battle over death, hell, and the grave. Thank God for His grace. Thank God for His mercy. Thank God that He's blessed us the way He has. Thank God for that. I thank you, the girls, for for singing, and I appreciate you. Appreciate your testimonies, and I know, I just want you to know I love you. I love every one of you. Appreciate you. You've been a blessing to me, and y'all just keep singing.
I appreciate that.
Hallelujah.
Amen. Yeah, that's good, girls. Oh, heavens. Praise His name. It's okay. Your word is wonderful. I appreciate you letting the Lord touch your heart. Oh, I like it.
Bless the Lord. Oh, that's good.
Consummation.
Yeah.
Through it all, I've learned to trust in Jesus, and I've learned to trust in God. Through it all, I've learned to depend upon His word.
That's the truth.
Oh, yes. Yes, I do.
Whoa, bless His name.
Trust in Jesus, and I've learned to trust in God. Through it all, I've learned to depend upon His word. Yes, I've learned to depend upon His word.
That's a good job.
Hallelujah. Lord God. Yeah.
Praise the Lord.
Well, I sure love those young ladies. I appreciate the Lord touching their hearts. And, our folks know just how quiet and meek the girls are. And to see the Lord touch them like that, I'm just going to tell y'all, that's special to me.
Yeah.
As your pastor, watching the Lord just squeeze y'all about what you see. Man, it goes to ministering to them like that, it's going to minister to the people that sing it to like that. That's wonderful. It's a sad day we can sing about the grace of God like they were singing about not be moved.
Oh, yeah.
So it was wonderful to see the Lord touch their hearts, and I appreciate how the Lord used them, give them opportunities to sing. They're always a blessing to sing for us. And that encouraged my heart, girls, I'm telling you, to see how the Lord, I was thinking while y'all were singing that, if not for grace, it was last week, would have been junior camp. And that's when we heard that last year. Miss Caitlin walked in a junior camp with that guitar, get that chord on that and sung. We shouted for 2.5 hours at junior camp, much less teen camp the next week. Amen. And boy, if it wasn't for grace, we'd been a mess. I like Brother David Nix's he was preaching here several years ago, and he made this statement about the graces of God. He said there are a lot of definitions. He said grace, God's riches at Christ's expense, and we, different ones. But the one that stuck out in my mind, he said, I believe my favorite definition of grace. He said grace is any time that the Lord's thinking about me. Oh, that's stuck in my mind, and I've not forgotten that. It's been several years since he made that statement, but he said, I believe the greatest definition of grace is any time that the Lord's thinking about me. And I appreciate it. Girls, I love you with all my heart. I'm so proud of you. And I appreciate you letting the Lord touch you. I'd rather see that. I told Brother Sean, man, we practice hard, Brother Jacob, to get our notes right. And, man, we try to breathe in the right place and all that kind of stuff and really work hard. But man, if it's just cold, dead ritual repetition, I don't know if God gets much glory out of that. But boy, to see the Lord speak to their hearts and minister to them and let them worship a little bit. That's what singing is supposed to do. Both to help us worship the Lord. And I appreciate it. I told them I'd rather see God touch them like that, them cry and testify, because it just touches my heart. I thank the Lord for it. Well, Brother Jacob Renshaw is our friend, and it was a blessed day with the Lord. Let him and Miss Brittany come be a part of our church family. Come on, Brother Jacob. Brother Jacob leads our adult choir. He leads our youth choir. He teaches on Wednesday nights in Sparks group. You got the Sparks group, you and Brother Scotty. And he helps out in there. And right now, looking after the church construction project. And he said they had a day of it around here today. Brother David looked at him and said, you know why it's this kind of day, don't you? Brother David said, why? He said, because you're preaching tonight, praise God. And those kind of days happen. But one thing I've always appreciated about Brother Jacob's his spirit. The Bible talks about Daniel. He had an excellent spirit. Brother Jacob's got that kind of spirit. I love him. He's going to preach to us tonight. You hear him and hear him well. And as he takes the word of God.
Well, it's good to be here tonight. And it has been a day. And it seems like everything that could go wrong today has went wrong. And it's about, I've tried to keep my mind on what I was thinking about preaching and trying to keep it on the Lord and things like that. And every time I about get there, something else would go loose again and get me all bamboozled again. And I am glad to be here tonight. And Brother Richard told me 10 minutes. And then Brother Mac told me not to kill it. So maybe between the two. We'll see what happens, all right? But I'll be taking my text out of 1 Samuel chapter 19 and chapter 20. We're going to do quite a bit of reading tonight. Preacher asked me to preach on Sunday, and I'd been thinking about what I was going to preach, kind of text with Adam showing me him talk a little bit back and forth together, and I had some other different messages. And then like yesterday on the way home from work, I believe the Lord put this on my heart. And so this is what I'm going to preach. I really don't have much of a sermon or outline, I guess you could say. So I'll just try to give what God give to me, and then I'll sit down and get out of the way. But we'll start off reading there in 1 Samuel chapter 19. But to bring you up to speed to where we're at in the Word of God, we could jump back, I guess, to chapter 16. 1 and 2 Samuel is my favorite book in the Bible. I love reading about David and Saul and the whole story through there. It's just loaded, and I love it. It is some of my favorite. I've got a lot of gleaning out of these books right here. But if we back up to chapter 16, we find that that is when the Lord he comes to Samuel and he says, why are you still weeping for Saul? And he said, I've picked me out another. And we know that is David. And we see that there when Samuel goes to Jesse, their house there. And he lines up all his boys. God already told Samuel, He said, don't look on his outward appearance. He said, I look on the inward, I look on the heart. And we find that he lined them all up, and none of them was the one that God had chosen. And I like the way that he didn't mention David's name, but he said there is yet but one. In the phrase that he described David as, he keepeth the sheep. And I like that phrase, he keepeth the sheep. That you can find a lot about those sheep in the Word of God, how we're sheep, and the typology there. But then we go on and we see that Samuel anoints David there to be the ruler over Israel in the upcoming future. And then we find that if we jumped over into chapter 17 of 1 Samuel, you would find that we know that story we was taught as a little kid, the story of David and Goliath. And we learned the song about how David had a sling, and he round and around and he went, and the stone we know went out of that sling and was directed by God and landed there in the forehead of Goliath. And we find that David defeated Goliath there in that valley that day, and we see that how Israel shouted for David, and how David wrought a great victory that day for Israel. And then we would jump over into chapter 18. You would begin seeing chapter 18 when Jonathan, that was when that covenant, that love covenant was made. And you'll see that Jonathan, there in the beginning of that chapter, laid his garments down, and laid his armor down, as to say that I am with you all the way, and as to symbolize that after he saw him down there in the valley and seen what he'd done, and he noticed that God was with David, that Jonathan symbolized that he was about to forsake all to follow David there. And if you was to look at all these occasions, these things that are happening in David's life, I'm bringing you up through his life here. It seems like everything is going just great in David's life. It seems like he's smooth sailing on the mountaintops. He's on cloud 9 there, and everything is going great in David's life. But then we jump into verse 19. And it seems like things have kind of taken a turn for the worse. Really, it begins in chapter 18. We see that Saul, he gets jealous over David. The first thing that happened was that they began to sing songs about David, how he'd slain his 10,000, how Saul had slain just thousands, and it sprung a root of jealousy, a root of pride in Saul's life. Saul sought out to kill David and to do away with him. Yeah. We find that David played the harp, and we find that Saul, it said an evil spirit came upon Saul, and Saul said, grabbed up the javelin. It said he would to smote him against the wall. It said David fled twice at that time. And then we see Saul's plot there. He gives David to wife his daughter, Michal, his daughter there, and he said to be there in verse 21, that she may be a snare to him. And then we read on down and we get to verse 19. And so David has been on this mountaintop experience, and he's got the promise of the future of being anointed as a king over Israel. But then as we begin into the latter parts of chapter 18, things seem to go out of hand a little bit. And I can I try to attempt to think about what's going through David's mind at this time. And he's probably trying to figure out what is happening in my life. I've been on the mountaintop, Lord. I just killed this giant. I've wrought a great victory. And now what is going on in my life? And then we get to chapter 19 and we begin in verse 1. And it said, and Saul spake to Jonathan, his son, and to all his servants, that they should kill David. Before time, you find that Saul was trying to do it secretly, but it seems as if now Saul has opened up, and he's trying to get Jonathan and all his servants to agree with him on this matter to kill David. Verse 2 said, but Jonathan, Saul's sons, delighted much in David. And Jonathan told David, saying, Saul, my father seeketh to kill thee. Now therefore I pray thee, Take heed to thyself until the morning, and abide in a secret place, and hide thyself. And I will go out and stand beside my father in the field where thou art, and I will commune with my father of thee. And what I see, that I will tell thee. And Jonathan spake good of David unto Saul his father, and said unto him, Let not the king sin against his servant, against David, because he hath not sinned against thee, and because his works have been to thee ward very good. For he did put his life in his hand, and he slew the Philistines. And the Lord wrought a great salvation for all Israel. Thou sawest it, and didst rejoice. Wherefore, when then wilt thou sin against innocent blood to slay David without a cause? And Saul hearkened unto the voice of Jonathan, and Saul sware, As the Lord liveth, he shall not be slain. And we find there's a promise that Saul made to Jonathan, that he said, I will not slay David. Jonathan called David, and Jonathan showed him all those things. And Jonathan brought David to Saul, and he was in his presence as in times past. And there was war again, and David went out and fought with the Philistines and slew them with a great slaughter, and they fled from him. And the evil spirit from the Lord was upon Saul as he sat in his house with his javelin in his hand. And David played with his hand. And Saul sought to smite David even to the wall with the javelin. But he slipped away out of Saul's presence, and he smote the javelin into the wall. And David fled and escaped that night. I'll stop right there and we're just going to kind of go through this little bit of passage right here, and I'll catch back up with my reading there in verse 11 in here in a minute. But we find that I've done mention that David has kind of been caught in the midst of a storm here. And I would dare say that he's trying to figure out what is going on in his life right now. I would say that David is trying to find some sense of security in his life, some sense of hope in his life right now. But we find that in the first part of this chapter 19, David doesn't find any security in the presence of his partner there. His friend Jonathan tells David, he said, My father seeketh to kill thee. Now go and hide in a secret place in the field. And tomorrow when me and my dad, we go out in the field, I'll tell him about the good things of you. And I'll remind him of the past, of everything that you've done for him. And I'll remind him how you wrought a victory for Israel. And I'll remind him of those things. And maybe we can bring this evil spirit, this evil demise in my father. We can make it obsolete. We can take it away at this time, and maybe we can go back to the way that things used to be. And but David couldn't find no security there, because he had to hide. He couldn't be with him at this point in time in his life. And then we find, though, that it seemed to be that Saul told Jonathan, he'd give him this beautiful promise. Yeah, I won't kill David, and I won't touch him. And so Jonathan goes and he brings up this good report that Saul has given him, saying, my dad said, he's not going to try to kill you. And maybe we can just go back to the way that things used to be. We find that David goes over there and he begins to play on that instrument as he once did. Said that evil spirit came upon Saul. And Saul said that it uprised in his heart. And he said that he sought to kill him and to smite him again. And may I remind you, this is the third time that David has had to flee from Saul as he has thrown these javelins at him. Maybe, Brother Howard, you can help me on that number 3 in this, I don't know, sometime later on. But we find that David couldn't find no security in the presence while he was in the palace there with the king. When he was there, you would think that in that palace there, that David would have had some sense of security. There's some people there within the palace. There's the sons of Saul. There's Saul himself. There's the the promise that has been handed, that has been given to David by mouth into his ears, and he would have some hope and security. But we find that security flees from David, and David has to flee from that place, from that palace there, from Saul's place, from the palace, from that place there. And we catch back up here in verse 11. Saul also sent messengers unto David's house. So we find that David makes a journey from there, from the place of Saul, from that palace there, and he makes his way down to his own dwelling place, his own house. And it said that Saul knew David would. He had to know David was going to go to his house. And so Saul sent messengers down there unto his house to watch him and to slay him in the morning. And Michal, David's wife, told him, saying, If thou save not thy life tonight, tomorrow thou shalt be slain. And so Michal let David down through a window, and he went and fled and escaped. And now we see that David's went from the field to this palace, and now he's at his own place, and he can't even find security in his own home. In his own place, David cannot find security. When he's around his wife there, in that home there, he cannot find a place of security. As David, we could read, I read it over there in Psalms 59, I believe it is. I'll read you a portion of that. This is kind of, in Psalms 59, is a passage that he was quoting while he was in this time in 1 Samuel 19 there. And he talks about that as they passed around through the night, he said they sounded like dogs. It said, but I like this last part there in 59. He said, But I will sing of thy power. Yea, I will sing aloud of thy mercy in the morning. Even though in the morning they were about to slay him, he said, I will sing of thy mercy in the morning. Oh yes, he said, For thou hast been my defense. Oh yes, and refuge in the day of my trouble. Unto thee, oh my strength, will I sing. For God is my defense and the God of my mercy. David there, he couldn't find no security in his place. And we find that how do you say her name? I was calling it Michal, but his wife there, she creates a scheme. I dare say she probably got it from her father, Saul. She's creating a scheme as she lets him down through the window that she's thinking in her mind, I'll put an idol in the bed. And why in the world does she have an idol there in that house while she's married to a man that loves the Lord? I don't know. But she puts it in that bed with some goat hair there. She stacks the pillows up nice to make it look like David's laying there in that bed. While she's scheming, David's over there in Psalms 59. He's praying. Oh my. And it said that them messengers, they reported back to Saul the answer that she gave them and said that he's sick. And Saul said it got angry, and he said, just pick up the whole bed and bring it all, and I'm going to kill him. It's going to be done today. Today's the day. We're just going to do away with it. And they would bring that bed back, and they find that it's nothing but a dummy in the bed. And David has escaped. So we find that David now, he's escaped from his own place, but now he goes somewhere else. And I find it is a good place. Said and David fled and escaped and came to Samuel. He goes and finds the prophet. Samuel to Ramah and told him all that Saul had done to him. And he and Samuel went and dwelt in Naioth. And Naioth, I studied that, it means dwelling. And that's probably where maybe them prophets dwelt together, they say. Maybe prayed together and met together. And it was told Saul, saying, Behold, David is at Naioth in Ramah. He had spies there as well. And Saul sent messengers to take David. And when they saw the company of the prophets prophesying, and Samuel standing as a point over them, the Spirit of God was upon the messengers of Saul, and they also prophesied. We find this story repeats himself. They begin to prophesy. May I just say this as I'm going forward? Just because you see somebody acting like they've got the Lord doesn't mean they're always a child of the King.
Right.
And they said they begin to prophesy. And that doesn't mean that's always a foretelling, but it can mean that they were just singing the songs that the Spirit that God had probably put upon them that day to stop them from killing David that day. We find that Saul sends messengers again. Happens again. Finally, Saul laces up pulls up his pants, laces up his shoes, and said, "I'll just do it myself." We find that Saul gets down there at Naioth. What happens to Saul? The same thing. We find that Saul, he falls down before Samuel. And you'll find that is the last time that Saul stands before Samuel. The next time you see it is when that he goes and finds that witch at Endor. Yeah. And he brings Samuel up from the dead. And you'll find this Saul's in the same position he is now. He's on his face, prostrate to the ground, and he's naked on the floor. And but then we find that even David couldn't find security in there. The prophets said there in chapter 20, it said, "And David fled from Naioth." This is the chapter I'm wanting to get into tonight, and I'm trying to hurry. I don't want to be too long tonight. But David couldn't find no security in all those places. But then when we get into chapter 20, David hastens to find Jonathan. And he asked that question. He said, "What have I done? What is my sin? That your father, he's trying to kill me." Paraphrasing there. And Jonathan doesn't believe the words of David. And he said, "Surely my father would let me know if he was going to kill me. He would tell me of such things as this." And he said, "No, your daddy knows that me and you are good friends. He's not going to tell you his true heart with me." And David tells Jonathan, Jonathan says, "Well, what do you want me to do? I'll do anything for you." And David says, I like this. This is David said unto Jonathan there in verse 5. He said, "Tomorrow is the new moon." He said, "I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. But let me go that I may hide myself in the field." Now it brings back in remembrance of chapter 19. This is not a first time thing. But, preacher, you got ahead of me a minute ago. But that's where I was getting to there in chapter 19, in verse 2. Where it said, Jonathan told David, he said, "I pray thee, take thyself until the morning, and abide in the secret place." And David said, I just can't help but think there in chapter 20, oh, that secret place must have been pretty good. It must have been a real good place. Because he said, "How about I just go back to that place again? It worked the first time, and maybe it'll work the second time. And I'll go back and I'll hide myself in the field until the third day at evening." He said, "If thy father had all missed me, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me that he might run to Bethlehem, his city. For there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the family. If he say thus, it is well. Thy servant shall have peace. But if he be very wroth, then be sure, Jonathan." He said, "Be sure that evil is determined by him." He said, "Therefore thou shalt deal kindly with thy servant." And I would like to read on, but for sake of time, we find that David and Jonathan talk, and they go together and they go and meet in that field. The first two times, or the first time you find that David's by himself in the field. The second time you find that their friendship, they're together in the field. And they begin to pray. They make that covenant there that we find that goes on in the future ahead. I almost kind of believe that Jonathan has more faith than David at this time. David's thinking that on the third day he's going to die. Jonathan looks at David and he says, "Oh, would you remember me in the future? And would you show kindness unto me until the day that I die?" The next time you find that show kindness is when you find David and Mephibosheth over in 2 Samuel chapter 19. And David begins to show kindness unto the house of Saul because of Jonathan, Mephibosheth's father's sake, because the covenant they made in the field a long time ago.
Yeah. Amen.
That's right.
So we get on down here and David said, "Jonathan, how will I know that whether it's good or whether it's bad?" Jonathan said on the third day, he said, "I'll come out here and I'll have my bow and I'll have my arrow." And he said, "If the arrow land beside thee, you'll know that all is well. Oh, but if you hear me say, oh, the arrow is beyond thee. If it's beyond thee, David, then get out of here quickly and depart. Get out of the country and leave. Get away as fast as you can, because danger's not far behind." And we find that as David hides himself, let me back up real quick. David goes in that field, and it said that he hid by a rock. Seems like David's always finding a rock in his life. Woo!
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. I'm reminded of the verse you quoted. I looked it up today. In Psalm 61, verse 2. "I will cry aloud," and he said, "when my heart is overwhelmed, lead me to the rock that is higher than I." Oh, yes. That rock, Ezel, means departure. Departure, by the way. But I'm also reminded of that Psalms 40, verses 1, I believe it is, that David said, "I was in the muck, I was in the mire," and he said that it brought me up, set me on a what? A rock. Established my goings. David was finding a rock. We find in that arrow Jonathan symbolizes. And for the next few minutes, I won't be long, but I want to preach on when the arrow is beyond thee. When the arrow is beyond thee. We find that the story goes on, and David's out there and he's hiding by the rock. No doubt, we know David, we read the book of Psalms, and David was a man of prayer. And David's out there. Jonathan told Saul that his brother had asked him to come home, and he lied. David wasn't. He's out there in that field. No doubt, probably them days seem real long. You ever seem like when you're when something is on the horizon and you don't really know what it holds. You don't know what the circumstance is going to bring just around the door. And it seems like those days are real long. When you're waiting to hear back about a bad case of something, of a circumstance in your life, when you're waiting to hear from the doctors about something, it seems like it's taking forever to get back. And David, sitting in that field, no doubt, day one, he's sitting there praying, "Oh God, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. Oh God, I need you." Day one passes by. Day two comes along. David's still in the field. And he's sitting there in the field, waiting to hear what is to hold for the morrow. And David sits there and he's praying on day two. Nothing yet. And when we find that day three comes around, find that he probably can hear here Jonathan and his servant walking through the grass. And he's wondering what that arrow is going to tell him about his life. And we see there's a public message that is being given as Jonathan rears that bow back and the arrow makes his way over the horizon. And I don't know, he done that to be a secret. So maybe if Saul had some messengers or some spies around there, they wouldn't know what was taking place at this point in time. But David knows and Jonathan knows. The servant thinks that he's just going to come out there and Jonathan's going to fling an arrow and maybe do some target practicing, and that he's going to fetch the arrow because he's the servant and Jonathan's the master, and I'll just fetch the arrow for him. He doesn't know the message that the arrow is about to deliver to David. He don't know that David is in that field himself, and he's hiding behind the rock. Oh, yes. Yes, he's hiding behind the rock. And David is awaiting upon the message that the arrow is going to deliver to him. And he sits there, and he's awaiting, no doubt. David is probably hoping. He's thinking, oh, I wish the arrow would land beside me. Yeah. I sure would like to go back to my home. I'd like to go back to the king's palace. And I'd like to play my harp once more. Oh, yeah. I'd like to go back and be as everything once was with my dear friend Jonathan. Yeah. I'd like to go back once more. And I'd like to eat at the king's table. I'd like to go back just to the way that it used to be. Jonathan, as he's walking in that field, I can see Jonathan's face. I'm sure that it is in despair because he knows the message he's about to deliver. Jonathan says, give me my bow, boy. Give me an arrow. And as much as it pained him, no doubt he would have loved to see David come back, because it said that their hearts were knit, and Jonathan loved David as his own soul. He wanted to see David come back. Oh, Jonathan rears back with the bow. He knows he can shoot it beside David. He knows where the rock is, and he knows where David is, and he knows that he can shoot the arrow where David is. But he knows if he's going to spare David's life, he must shoot the arrow beyond David. So Jonathan rears the bow back. The string is wound tight. The wood is cracking back. Jonathan lets go of that bow. And that arrow begins to soar through the sky. And he watches it depart. And I shoot the bow, and I like to shoot deer. And when I've shot the arrow, it goes at such a rate of a speed that you lose sight of the arrow. But see, Jonathan had a spot he was shooting for. No doubt he may have lost sight of the arrow, but he knew where he was shooting. And that servant boy took off running. And he was running to get the arrow that Jonathan had shot. And about the time the boy, he's there at the arrow. He knows where the arrow is at. But Jonathan beckons out the words and he says, the arrow be beyond thee. The arrow be beyond thee. Which signified to David, get me out of here. Get out of my presence. Leave the town. Leave it all behind. Get out of here. Because death, as David said there in the previous verses, death is but a step away. So we find that
He's by that stone easel, which means departure. If he only knew. If he only knew. And then in verse said that I'll jump on down here. He said unto his lad, run, find the arrows, which I should have done hit all that. And then verse 37, we find that phrase, is not the arrow beyond thee. And Jonathan cried out after the lad, make speed. See, the lad was thinking Jonathan was talking to him, but Jonathan was talking to David. He said, make speed, haste. He said, stay not. And Jonathan's lad gathered up the arrows and came to his master. And Jonathan looked at his lad. He said, get out of here. He said, take my bow and take my weapon back into town. He said, I'll be on shortly. He said, as soon as the lad was gone, David arose out of a place toward the south, fell on his face to the ground. We see David's countenance as he falls to the ground. He's troubled. He falls to the ground and he bowed himself. Here we go, Brother Howard, 3 times. And they kissed one another and wept one another until David exceeded. In verse 42, we wind this chapter down. It says that Jonathan said to David, go in peace. For as much as we have sworn both of us in the name of the Lord, saying the Lord is between me and thee, and between my seed and thy seed forever. And he arose and departed. And Jonathan went into the city. And that wasn't the last time. There's one more time, I believe, where Jonathan and David meet together. Or they see each other once again. But there they bid their farewells. Jonathan, no doubt, he's hating to see his friend departing. And David, we see his countenance by him falling to the ground. He was not wanting this. He wasn't wanting the arrow to go beyond him. David was wanting the arrow to land beside him. He wasn't wanting to leave it all behind. But yet, we find that God had other plans for David's life. David couldn't see around the corner. You know, preacher, you preached on that verse, I remember, and you talked about, said, thy word is a lamp unto my feet. And you made that statement, and you said, it doesn't light up way up ahead. Oh no. But all it does is it lights up the next step. And we find that when David left, it was said that David went on for about 10 years in exile after he left from this point. And he had to leave it all behind. And he had to leave his house there and his wife. And he had to leave that palace there of the king. And he had to leave his friendship, and he had to depart and go on by himself and leave it all behind. David, no doubt in his heart, is sad and he's in distress and he's worried. But if you look over there in that Psalms, I believe it is 61 there, that David knew a little bit about the Lord, and he knew a little bit about, like we talked before, about the rock. And we find that verse 2 there that I quoted earlier, from the end of the earth will I cry unto thee. When my heart is overwhelmed, he said, lead me to the rock that is higher than I. And we know that everything he was leaving behind, that wasn't the rock he could lean on. He said, verse 3, for thou hast been a shelter for me. Yes, the house provided a physical shelter, That ain't the shelter that I need in this time. He said, for thou hast been a shelter for me. Oh, yes, and a strong tower from the enemy. They seek my life. But Lord, I know that you're my rock. And I know that in times like these, oh, you've proven to me before. Goliath was just a small giant in my life. But for these next 10 years, Lord, you're going to have to be the rock that I need that is higher than I. You're going to have to be the shelter that shelters me from the upcoming storm. And you're going to have to be that strong tower that I climb at night and I look out. Oh, you're going to have to be the tower. You're going to have to be the one that watches over me. Verse 4, I like what he said. I will abide. I will abide. Oh, yes. Yes, I will abide in thy, not a tabernacle, but thy tabernacle. Forever. Not just for the time being. Not just for this time of derision that I am in. I will abide in thy tabernacle forever. That is continual. That is down through the ages. That is on through David's life. I will abide in thy tabernacle forever. Yes, and it doesn't stop. Y'all just stay with me. I'm having a time. Oh, here's the second one, Brother Howard. I will trust. Oh, yes. I'm not going to trust in Jonathan. And I'm not going to trust in Saul anymore. I'm not going to trust in my earthly things anymore. I will trust in the covert of thy wings. See that? David there in Psalm 61. Oh, not only David was in despair, but now we see David's forward lines upon his Maker, his Deliverer, his God, the one that brought him into the world. David said in Psalms 51, he said, in the womb, he said that you made me. You made me in the womb. From that point on, that's the God I'm talking about. That's brought me from day one. And when my father mentioned me before Samuel about the one that keepeth the sheep, oh, that was the God that brought Samuel to the house that day. And it's been the God all the way. And I believe I'm reminded of the song preacher. That song, I don't remember who wrote it. But I believe that I'll just go on with God. David said, He's brought me this far and He'll take me the rest of the way. He'll do it. I'm reminded of the song, He'll do it again. Yes, He'll do it again. Just take a look at where you are now and where you've been. He always come through for you. He's the same now as then. Oh, yes, you may not know how. Oh, and you may not know when. But He'll do it again. He'll do it again.
Yeah, help yourself, son. He sure will. Amen.
David says, He'll do it again. And you say, well, what are you saying here tonight? And I'm saying that a lot of us, whether you're at your home and you're in your room right now and you're watching this preach and you're listening to this word and you've heard this singing and you're wanting the air to land beside you. And you're wanting it to land beside you and you're hiding in the field. Yeah. And the storms have been raging in your life. And you're wanting it to land beside you.
because you're wanting to go back to the way that things used to be. You're wanting your life to go back to how it used to be. Oh, and we've been facing some rough waters here lately in our church. With Miss Jessica and her wreck, I'm reminded of that one. I'm reminded of Miss Edie, I believe we mentioned. And I'm reminded of several others that I can't mention at the moment that's facing the battle. And you're wanting the air to land beside you. I'm reminded of some prayers that I'm praying for some people, of some needs, of some wants that are wanting, and they're wanting the air to land beside them. And you're wanting to land beside you because you're wanting to go back to your comfort zone. You're wanting to go back to the way it used to be. You're wanting everything to go back to normal. God, He's got the air pulled back. And He's got the air, He's got that bow pulled back. And He's got the air in that bow. He's letting it rip. And God's wanting to take you on to greater places.
Yes.
And He's wanting to take you on to greater heights. Yeah. But what you don't see is you're going to have to go through some times of exile. And you're going to have to leave it all behind. And we talk about those men of times gone past, about how they had the power of God, Brother Mark. And I want it, and I desire it. But none of us want the exile that came with it. I used to drive Brother David around, and he used to tell me about the times that he would take Brother Edgar some greens and some cornbread. And he said he'd go down to that room where he prayed. He said he'd open the door, and he said you couldn't even see his eyes because of the tears that he had cried, and he had wept, and he prayed, and he had sought God. Why does men have power like that in their life? It's because they sought God. And they've had some times of a long time. Sometimes by themselves. When nobody was around. When nobody was there to see. When there was no pride being lifted up. It was just them and God.
That's right.
Amen.
We say we want to be back in the building. And we want the power of God to fall from heaven. But do we really want it? Yeah. God's put us in a time of exile, it seems like. We've not had the resources that we've had. God, I believe, wants to take Wahoo Baptist Church.
Yes.
And He's got Wahoo Baptist Church. And He's wanting to shoot the arrow, I'll be honest. And He's got us in a time like this.
Yes.
When He's pushed us and He's secluded us to our families and our houses and our homes. Why? Because He's wanting to take Wahoo Baptist Church. And He's wanting to take us far beyond. Far beyond what we could ever think, what we could ever imagine. He wants us to take us beyond a 40 by 60 edition. He wants us to take us beyond the new pews and the new chairs. That ain't got nothing to do with the ministry. Nothing to do with serving God. That's just a place that we can assemble ourselves together.
Yeah.
Just a tool.
If we're looking to get back in that church and for the power of God to fall because of some new pain and some new walls, we missed the whole point.
Yes.
Missed it.
That's right.
Everybody.
God's got the bow. He's got it pulled back. He's got the arrow. And I'd say perhaps
He's done released the era. Oh, and the era has done been planted far beyond us, and we know it's beyond us. We've done seen it land, but we're too fearful. Oh, we don't have enough faith in ourselves to trust God where He's taken us to.
Yeah.
I know I'm preaching long.
Well, you do it good.
And I probably
You do it fine.
need to wind it down.
You do it good.
But God's wanting to take us.
Tell it, Brother Tate.
He's wanting to take us to greater heights. I'm going to give a story. I'm going to wind it down to this. A long time ago, I used to work for the post office. And I used to have to drive a big old 2-ton truck. And I used to have to drive it. I've told this story several times. I mean, it was the first time that God shot the arrow beyond me. And I remember it just like it was yesterday, preacher. I was riding in the 2-ton truck. And I was going up. I had to stop at all them small post offices, all the way to Dillard, from Cornelia to Dillard. And I remember I got right in Clayton. Right before I got to Clayton, it was no houses, no nothing. It's just kind of dead right through there. And I was singing the song just out of habit, because I sing all the time. I love this sing. And I was singing that song. My mama used to sing it. Oh, whatever it takes to draw closer to you, Lord, that's what I'll be willing to do. For whatever it takes for my will to break, that's what I'll be willing to do. It says I'll trade sunshine for rain, comfort for pain. That's what I'll be willing to do. Oh, whatever it takes for my will to break, that's what I'll be willing to do. And I was singing that song riding in the truck. And I remember God came in that truck with me. And it wasn't as other times. It wasn't really one of those pleasant times, I guess you could say. But He came to me in that truck, and I'm not going off on, I heard it verbally, but He came to me in my heart and began to speak to me. And I had not long after that, long before that, I had just got married to my wife. And we were newlyweds. And the Lord, all it was this. And there wasn't nothing else. He said, what about your wife? And it crushed me. Because I was singing, Lord, whatever it takes. He said, what if I take your wife? Are you willing to give that up? Because that was what was most precious to me. I just got married. And that was my bride. I just got done seeing her walk down the aisle in a white dress. And we just started our journey of happily ever after. And I remember I fought with him. And you can say you shouldn't have fought, but I did. I fought with God on that deal. All the way up to Clayton. All the way through Clayton. All the way up to Dillard. And I remembered I was coming back down in the 2-ton truck. And that just turned and turned in my heart. And it turned and turned and turned in my mind. And I thought and I thought and I thought. And it just drove deeper and deeper and deeper. Till finally I came to the point in my life. And I finally said, God, whatever it takes. God, I need you. I need you in my life. You give me my wife. And you can take her. She's yours. You'll be the only reason why we make it through this life. And if you want her, she's yours. God drew that thing away from me. Am I all right? Am I all right on time?
Oh, you got all the time you want.
And I'm not trying to give sob stories. I'm just trying to give you personal experience. Brother David taught me a long time ago, and I've tried to stay within my experience. Brother David always told me, he said, son, don't never preach out of your experience. And so I'm just giving you some things in my life.
Amen.
Personally. Preacher could give you some of his. But I remember the second time God was trying to shoot the air beyond. And it wasn't a verbal. But God brought me through one of the lowest times in my life. I remember we had a little place to rent. And I was paying $400 a month. And the place was run down. I'd wake up in the morning times. And water was running down the inside of the walls. Because there was no insulation. And it was just humid in our house. And I woke up on a Sunday morning, leave to come to church that morning. I remember I went and grabbed my suit and it had mold on it. I said, I got to get out of here. I can't raise my wife in here. So we began to look for a house. And we found one. So me trying to save money, I thought I'd just go ahead and move out instead of having to pay another month rent. I would go live with my father-in-law and mother-in-law, with Michael and Miss Denise. I had a little shack out back. It was his study. And it was about a 10 by 10 room. Talking about a secret place. And the house drug on for about 3 months. And the guy was ready. He said, I'm going to put it back on the market. Wells Fargo wasn't closing like they said it would. When it got to the higher-ups, they forgot about it and all this junk. And so if everything was going bad already at the time, me and my wife was wanting to have a child. And I remember the day we was here at the church.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And we was doing our security training. My wife, at Sunday morning, we stayed over in between services so I could do my training and she went on to the house. I remember we was upstairs. And I got a call from my wife and said things ain't right there. And I didn't have a ride to get home. And I remember I wept with you, preacher. I said, I need to get home. And I remember Brother David Martin drove me home that day. I remember the thoughts that went through my mind. What God, what are you doing? What are you doing? I'm reminded of Psalms 51. A broken and a contrite heart, O God, thou wilt not despise. My heart was broken. And I wept all the way home. I remember we left and we had to go to the hospital. And I remember that day, we lost our little child that day. And my heart wept and I was quoting that verse. Lead me to the rock that is high and high. Oh God, help me. What are you doing? I just want things to go back to the way they were. I just want things to go back to the way they were. Oh, I can't help my wife. I don't know what to do. I can't even help myself right now. Oh, God, help me. And then I didn't know what I know now. Is that God was taking the arrow and He was shooting far beyond me. Far beyond me. Far beyond what Jacob Renshaw could see. God was shooting it on, and I was wanting the air to land beside me. I was wanting it to land here. I was wanting it to stay like it was. But God said, oh no, son. You remember when you sang the song and you said whatever it takes. You remember the time when you prayed, whatever it takes. Come on.
Yes.
I said, God, I remember. I remember what I prayed and I remember what I said. I remember it vividly in my heart. I said, whatever it takes. And he said, son,
Yes.
well, I'm taking you, son, and we're going to go. But you're going to have to just trust me. Preacher, you can help me with this saying. Y'all remember you mentioned it. When you can't trace the what?
Can't trace the hand.
When you can't trace the hand of God,
You can trust the heart.
you can trust the heart of God. I couldn't trace his hand. Oh no. To be honest with you, I was kind of like what old Job said. I couldn't find him on my left and I couldn't find him on my right. But you know what I done? I looked back and I saw where God had brought my parents through some things. And I saw where he brought me through some little small Goliaths in my life. And I said, I believe I'll just go on with God and I'll trust his heart.
Yes. Yeah.
He ain't never done you wrong.
Yes.
Hey,
It's good preaching.
And today, you say, what are you doing, Jay? I'm just still trusting the heart of God. Everybody wants to make out the will of God, like we got to figure it out, like we got to know what it is, the future of God's will in our life. Somebody asked me, they said, what is the will of God in your life? And the best way that I can describe it is every morning when I get out of the bed, and I lace my boots up, and I put on my work clothes, and I go to work.
Yes, amen.
one step at a time.
One step at a time.
Yes, amen.
That's about as much as I know.
Yes,
I had
amen.
some young preachers come and ask me, yeah, you're going to pastor one day, you're going to evangelize. And right now, all I'm doing is I'm just taking one step at a time.
Woo! Amen. That's good preaching.
God, and I don't even really know where the year is at and where the ending line is. But every day I get up and I come here to work.
Yes, amen.
I get in my truck. And I'm big on music. I'm against all this worldly music. Because I believe we all listen to something that gets our heart and mind on God.
Yeah.
David said earlier, will I seek thee? And in the morning time, I'll get up. And as I go to work, I'll turn on either some preaching or I'll turn on some singing. Like the preacher called me today. I just listened to some good old hymnal music. Just the piano playing. And it keeps my mind at bay from all the things around me. Keeps my heart in tune with God. And I just try to focus on Him. And that's my will for right now. That's His will for my life right now. Just doing that. And when God says turn, I'll turn. And when God says get straight, young people, if you're watching tonight, you better listen. You better just get in your word. And you get in your secret and you abide like David did in the secret place in the field by the rock. And you just take it a day at a time. And you let God just lead you day at a time. And you just walk with Him day at a time. And you just walk with Him. And you let the lamp just guide your feet day at a time.
Amen. That's right.
My dad used to tell me, he said, son, he said, there's never a time in the Christian life when there's a plateau, when you reach a level spot in the Christian life. He said, you're either going up or you're going down.
Yeah.
And if you're not letting God lead you like He should, and He ain't got your heart, and you're in the era, and you ain't yet going with the era, that's beyond me. And may I say, you're backslid on God. You're on an incline slope. And my personal experiences. And like you said, Brother Matt, I've heard you say it before. God took one of them, and that's all right. I often wonder what it would have been like.
Oh, yeah.
All that, you know.
Yeah.
I'm not giving you a sob story. Don't get your eyes focused on that. Talking about the era behind me.
Yes.
But then God gave me another one.
Yeah.
Oh, I believe it was March the 2nd. Oh, Gibson. Help me, baby boy. God will take and God will give.
Yes.
Bless
And I remember when that baby was born, the same thing I prayed on my first one when it was in the womb.
Yeah.
Was the second one when Gibson came along. I remember I picked him up out of that bed and nobody heard me or nobody saw me. But I picked him up and I began to pray.
Yeah.
Lord, he's yours.
Yes.
That's what we
Yeah.
told. That's what we told.
Henry came along November the 6th. I said it over him as well. And preacher, I'd say you're still saying it over Carter and Ronnie today.
20 years ago. I said,
You've heard you say it before, and my boys ain't there yet. But I was talking another day. I need to hush.
you're doing good.
But I remember the other day when Brother Rob was talking about that grace happened here. I was just thinking about it. I can't wait to see. I watched my boy, both of them, walk down the aisle.
Get born again.
Yes.
And they experience grace on a personal level that Daddy can't teach them.
Nope.
Mama can't give them.
Yes.
Oh, but it'll be something I prayed for long before they ever get to it. And I'll watch grace happen in their life. And it won't be because Daddy put it in there. And it won't be because Mama did. It'll always be because God. It was because God come down and He put unmerited and rich grace in their heart. I want Him to go far beyond Daddy's expectations. I want Him to go beyond what I could ever give them.
Yes.
If they play ball, that'll be great. And if they don't, that'll be fine.
That's right.
If they graduate with a high school level, they don't. I mean, if they graduate with high school, they're going to graduate high school. I'm just going to put it there. But if they just graduate high school and they don't go on to college and they just go on with God, that'll be all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm just going to do what the Bible tells me. Train up a child. They are a child in the way it should go. And what way is that?
With the Lord.
Thy word is a lamp unto my feet. John 1:1 said, in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God. And the Word was God. And so what I'm going to give them is I'm just going to give them Him.
Give him the book.
Yeah.
Give them the Word.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good preaching.
When the era is beyond thee. I'm done, preacher. When the era is beyond thee. Go on with God.
Yes. Hey.
Go on with God. Sorry, I preached too long.
In times like these, I need a Savior.
Yes.
In times like these, I need an anchor.
Yes.
Be very sure. Be very sure. Your anchor holds and grips the solid rock. And that rock is Jesus. Yes, He's the one. That rock is Jesus, the only one. Be very sure. Be very sure. Your anchor holds and grips the solid rock. In times like these, I need my Bible. Oh, in times like these, oh, be not idle. Be very sure. Be very sure. Your anchor holds and grips the solid rock. In times like these, I have a Savior.
That's right.
And in times like these, I have an anchor, and I'm very sure. I said, I'm very sure. Oh, I'm very sure. My anchor holds and grips the solid rock. And that rock is Jesus. Yes, He's the one. That rock is Jesus, the only one. Be very sure. Oh, be very sure. Your anchor holds and grips the solid rock. I believe I'm well acquainted with that rock he was preaching about. I bless the Lord. I remember that song too, Brother Jacob. You scared me to death when I was a child. I was a young man. I didn't want to sing that song. You get talking that you get to that verse, take my houses and lands and change my dreams and my plans.
Right.
If that's what it takes for me to draw. That ain't just, I never have just sung something to be singing. That had some weight to it.
Right.
And I'm glad that when He takes us, the air is beyond us. He takes us on to the, I thought of that old song we sang his dad. He used to like when we were, I were dating, he would lead us singing some at the church. He'd like to sing that song, Lord, take my feet, let me stand by faith on heaven's table land. A higher plane that I have dwelled. Lord, plant my feet on higher ground.
Right.
Lord, he used to sing that. God help us in this day that the Lord take us there. Don't you appreciate that preaching, praise God? He said, just get out there in that secret place till the morning. You say, how are we going to make it, preacher? We're just going to wait till the morning. We're going to get in that secret place and dwell there. And we'll make it till the morning. I bless the Lord. Brother Jacob, wonderful preaching. Wonderful preaching. I bless the Lord. Girls, that was excellent singing. Boy, you blessed my heart tonight. And I thank the Lord. Brother Mark, I enjoyed the testifying. I just put him on the spot, and God helped him, and I appreciated that. Girls did excellent. Preaching was wonderful. Brother Chris, thank you for taking care of the video. Brother Richard, thank you for taking care of the sound. I appreciate all the ones that make these services possible. And I appreciate the effort and all that goes into it. Well, don't forget Sunday morning at 10 o'clock. Lord's will, we're shooting that to the place where we can maybe, hopefully a week from Sunday, get back into the building. If not, at least by the last Sunday of July, we'll be in the new building. Like Brother Jacob said, it's not about the pews. That's just that's a tool for us to do more for the work of God. And I'm looking forward. I ain't gonna lie, I am looking forward to that air conditioning.
Amen.
Amen. 93 Sunday morning was a little rough, praise God. But I'm looking forward to that, and I appreciate all that's been done. Thank you for being with us tonight, tuning in. May God bless you till we meet again.